Is the new album from Queens of the Stone Age, In Times New Roman, worth a listen? Let's find out. Hey everybody, it's Nick here with you. Welcome back to the Rock Squad channel, and welcome to my rock album review for the brand new album for Queens of the Stone Age. It's called In Times New Roman.
I wanna make it with you, anytime, anywhere, and I say.
Before we get to it, guys, if you love to rock out as much as we do here on the Rock Squad channel, make sure to smash that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos. Make sure to like this video, we'd appreciate that, and make sure to share this video online with your friends and fellow Queens of the Stone Age fans.
I can go with the flow. Don't say it doesn't matter with the flow.
In Times New Roman is the 8th studio album from Queens of the Stone Age. It's a follow-up to 2017's Villains. You know, Queens of the Stone Age, they like to make us wait a long wait in between albums. It's been 6 years since we had new music from Josh Homme and the members of Queens of the Stone Age. And of course, it's been an eventful couple of years for Josh because not only did he go through a rough divorce, he had a custody battle for his kids, and then he was diagnosed with cancer as well. So it's been an eventful couple of years for Josh Homme, and we're glad that he's hopefully on the other side of it and putting out new music with Queens of the Stone Age on this new album called In Times New Roman. And I would say I'm a pretty big Queens of the Stone Age fan. I've never really listened to the debut album, so for me, kind of Queens of the Stone Age starts with Rated R, and of course that's a great record, and then we get into Songs for the Deaf, which I think is one of the best rock records ever made. Love Songs for the Deaf. And then I like the records that they put out through the rest of the 2000s, like Lullabies to Paralyze and Aero Vulgaris. But then after that, not really kept up with the band as much as I should. I love them Crooked Vultures, the side project that Josh Homme had with Dave Grohl and John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin. But the thing is, like, I just haven't really kept up with it. I liked Like Clockwork and I liked Villains, but really with both of those albums, there's only a handful of tracks that I took away from each of those records. Even though I'm still a big Queens of the Stone Age fan, I felt there was a couple, a handful of stronger tracks on those records. And now we get to this new album called In Times New Roman. And although I think this is really a really strong record music-wise and sonically, I can say that I didn't really like this album in terms of the actual melodies of the songs.
They don't know I never do you any good. Laughing is easy, I would if I could.
Yeah, the thing with In Times New Roman is that it's a very strong record sonically. There's so much going on here sonically and musically with the members of Queens of the Stone Age. They are all at the top of their game. There's no doubt about that. When it comes to the performances on this record, there's a lot of interesting guitar stuff happening on here, a lot of interesting bass stuff, a lot of great drum stuff, and obviously, Josh Homme is at the top of his game with his vocals as well. I just think this album is maybe lacking a little bit in the melody department, and anybody who knows me on this channel knows that I'm all about the melody. Of course, I love a good rockin' song, and I love some awesome guitar stuff, some awesome instrumental stuff, but for me, the melodies really have to be there. And on Times New Roman, I felt like I came out of the record not really remembering a lot of the songs that I was listening to. There are some exceptions on this record. There are some really catchy songs, and I know that Josh Homme, he's making an artistic statement with this record. Not a statement, but he's making an artistic expression with this record. He's going through a lot of emotions because he's gone through a lot in his life. So I know that writing catchy hooks may not be at top of mind for his writing on In Times New Roman, but for my money, I just wish that there was a few better melodies on this record, even though there's a lot going on instrumentally. So I did like In Times New Roman. I didn't love it, but you know what? Let's get to the songs individually on In Times New Roman that I liked, and maybe the ones that I didn't like so much. Let's go track by track. The first song on In Times New Roman is called OBSCENERY, and up front, I'm just going to say that the song titles on this album are great. There's a lot of tongue-in-cheek song titles, a lot of play on words that are happening in these song titles. So just off the bat, I want to say I really love the song titles on In Times New Roman, including this one called OBSCENERY. It kicks off with a fuzzed-out riff, which is what you expect from Queens of the Stone Age. They are a great guitar band. You go to Queens of the Stone Age to hear those awesome riffs and to hear those great guitar tones. So for guitar people like me, and for people who play guitar or just love listening to guitar rock and guitar music, this is definitely a great song for me. Some soulish vocals from Josh on this, some great falsetto. As I said, his vocals sound great on In Times New Roman, and then it drifts into a little string suite in the song, which I thought was really cool. There's some really, like I said, sonically, this album sounds incredible. I listened to it on my headphones, and there just felt like there were so many different things popping into both sides of the headphones. A very interesting listen and a very strong listen if you're a fan of that. It was lush and it was rocking, so that's kind of a great combination when you're thinking of an opening track for a record. And it reminded me of Feet Don't Fail Me, which I think is from Villains, so same kind of vibe happening on there. So I really liked OBSCENERY. Paper Machete is the next song on this record, another great play on words and another great title on In Times New Roman. And this song I thought was like a classic Queens of the Stone Age rocker. I know that Josh Homme was comparing it to Little Sister, I think, being kind of like a cousin song or a sister song to Little Sister, which I can definitely get with the vibe of this song. The melody didn't grab me that much, but it was one of the the releases before we heard the album, and there's some really cool riff on this, some great bass on this as well, courtesy of Mikey Shoes, I think is the name of the band member on bass. He's also in Mini Mansions, which is another great band that I really like. There's some awesome solo on here. And actually, Paper Machete reminded me a little bit of the Hives of all bands. The Hives have that spiky, angular kind of guitar rock, that very doo-doo, 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 and I felt like they were doing that on Paper Machete as well. So I think this one is definitely in the plus column for the new record from Queens of the Stone Age. Then we get to a song called Negative Space. This had a lot of great fuzz on it. Like I said, the guitar tones on this record. If there was one, I think, headline about this record is that the guitar tones, the bass tones, sound really good. Actually, you know what? The only thing I would say with this record is I didn't love the sound of the drums, but I'll get to that in just a little bit. I thought this one, again, had another killer bass line on it. I think the bass is really one of the best things that's happening on this record. It was very percussive, it was snappy, it was tight, which is something that I really enjoy in all my rock music. I want things to be really, percussive, and that's the cool thing, like I was saying, if you're listening in headphones, a lot of those spiky, percussive parts are coming at you from different angles, which makes for a very, very interesting listen, and I think there's a lot of talk about relationships on this record. It's funny, with this new record from Queens of the Stone Age, Josh Homme is going through a lot of emotions and a lot of things that he's been talking about, but it's kind of similar to his buddy Dave Grohl, who on this new Foo Fighters record that I reviewed a couple of weeks ago, But Here We Are, who's going through a lot of grief about the death of Taylor Hawkins and the death of his mother. So they're buddies and they have a lot going on. There's a lot to digest emotionally on both of these records, and I think the Negative Space, I think, was more about the relationship side of what Josh has been going through, but I really dug this track. Then we get to a song called Time and Place. I thought this one had a really good groove. It was really dancey. There are a lot of really dancey grooves on this, so you could definitely shake your ass a little bit to this new album from Queens of the Stone Age. It had some really scuffy guitars, bands doing scuffs, which I really, really enjoyed. The melody wasn't super catchy, but again, I know that's not necessarily the goal of this record, is to make radio catchy melodies. That's not the goal of any record. It's a nice byproduct, or if that's what you're going for, that's great. But I understand that maybe, writing the catchiest songs, writing another No One Knows, or another, first, Go With The Flow or something like that is not necessarily the goal of Queens of the Stone Age on here. But the thing, I would say, sonically, the one thing I found disappointing about In Times New Roman is the drums on this record. I felt they were so low in the mix, or just kind of buried in the overall mix, and that's probably a conscious choice, because on a lot of new records, especially over the last decade or couple of decades, a lot of modern rock records, the drums are really up front. That kick is really, really punchy, and the snare is super snappy, and a lot of bands go for that on their new albums, which is maybe something that Queens of the Stone Age was trying not to do, because maybe they don't like to have the drums so thick in the mix. But I wish the drums would have come up a little bit in the mix, but otherwise it was an okay song, and that was Time and Place. Then we get to a song called Made to Parade, another great title. I think that's my favorite thing about In Times New Roman are the song titles. But this song felt a little bit like filler to me. It didn't really jump out to me on first listen. I wish a lot of these songs jumped out to me more. Like, if you asked me to sing Time and Place or Made to Parade, I don't think I could. Obviously, upon further listens, I probably could. But there's nothing immediately that I was like, that's catchy, and that's something I'm going to be singing after I listen to the record. But again, great musicianship on this record. Great musicianship on this song in particular, and lyrically scathing. I think Josh Homme has a lot of people that he's talking about on this record. He's got a lot of things to get through and a lot of emotions to process. So he's got a little bit of a shit list on here, which I totally agree with. But I love the lyrics of the song "Made to Parade with the mess you made." So obviously he's got lots of things to say about different people. It didn't jump out to me too much, but unfortunately not a lot of the songs on this record did. But it's an okay track, and that's Made to Parade. And then we get to one of my favorite tracks on the record, which is Carno Voyeur, another great title. This was one of the songs that was released before In Times New Roman as the album came out. It's been a hard few years for Josh, as we were discussing already in this review, but was it like, he's like, there's nothing I can do. That was a really good lyric. He's going through a lot in this song. I think this is probably one of the most emotional songs on this record. I loved it more as I kept listening, and that might be the thing with In Times New Roman, and that's the thing with really any of the reviews I do here on the channel, is that it's a first listen, and I'm giving my review of my initial listen, but if I listen to it more, obviously it's going to sink in more than it has. And I think with Carno Voyeur, I didn't really like it on the first listen, but when I listened to it again for this review, I liked it a lot more, and it's got some dreamy harmonies on here as well. There's a lot of really great thick harmonies happening on here, which is something as a vocalist I can definitely appreciate, and I thought this is one of the stronger songs on this record, so I really enjoyed Carno Voyeur. Then we get to What the Peephole Say, and again, I'm just going to keep saying it because every time I list the titles on here, they all have a nice little play on words to them. What the Peephole Say. That's one, again, has an awesome bass intro from Mikey Shoes. This one sounds incredible. Reminds me of Sick 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 from Era Vulgaris. That's a great track as well. One of the stronger songs on this record. I think this is one of the songs that stuck out to me the most. It had some really fun dual guitars on here and some great vocals as well, some great harmonies. Tonight is the Night was one of my favorite lyrics in this song, so I really enjoyed What the Peephole Say. Great title. Then we get to a song called Sicily, which is another good title. There's not a play on words, but it's called Sicily, and I have a lot of family from Sicily. I'm half Sicilian, so that would be a good song title for me. So this one starts with another catchy bass line. Again, the bass is really the headline for me on this one. The guitars, the bass, the sonics that are happening on this record sounds great. Some sort of great falsetto on here. It kind of has a little bit more of a bluesy feel, and that's something that Queens of the Stone Age have leaned into more over the last decade or so, I would say. When they started out, they were, Josh was coming from Caius, which was a stoner rock band, and Queens of the Stone Age, those first few records definitely have that stoner rock vibe, and then they kind of went more into stadium or arena rock when they came out with No One Knows, and they came out with Songs for the Deaf, and all those records that came after that, and then they've evolved into more of like a swampy bluesy kind of thing, which is definitely something that I can appreciate. But I love the strings on this song. I think this is one of my favorite songs on the record. It had a lush middle section, so I really love, despite it being about where some of my family's from, I love the title, and I love the song as well. So Sicily was definitely one of the stronger tracks for me on In Times New Roman. And then we get to the first single from this record that was released, I want to say about a month and a half ago when they announced that this record was coming out. It's called Emotion Sickness. It's a great single from Queens of the Stone Age. I think it is one of the stronger songs on the record because it does have a little more of that catchy melody. It's like one of my favorite singles from this record. I love the spiky guitars, and the thing that I really love Emotion Sickness for is that chorus, baby, don't go for me, and those harmonies. My girlfriend and I, Danielle and I, both agreed that it reminded us of like 70s rock, like listening to like the Eagles or like the Doobie Brothers or Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Those super strong stacked harmonies, which I really, really liked. I think that's a very, very cool influence, and it helps the song to stand out to me a little bit more than some of the other songs on In Times New Roman. So I think it's a great single. I think it's a great Queens of the Stone Age song in general, so I really love Emotion Sickness. Then we get to the last song on In Times New Roman from Queens of the Stone Age. It's called Straight Jacket Fitting. It's an epic 9-minute long song to cap off this record. And I know, bands have done epic, long songs for years and years, but I feel like it's a trend that's coming back in record, a lot of modern rock records. You think about the Foo Fighters and their latest record, there's that 10-minute long, 11-minute long song called The Teacher, and now Queens of the Stone Age are doing that as well with Straight Jacket Fitting. Again, with a lot of the songs on this record, same on this, it's not like I came out of it, singing the entire thing, but I thought it was a really interesting way to end the album. And like I said, this is a very artistic album. It's not necessarily about writing catchy radio hits. It's about making really interesting rock music, and that's something I can totally get behind, despite me not being able to hum a lot of these songs after I stopped listening to the record. But it is a really great rock record in general. If you're just a rock music fan, I can understand how you really like this, and I think it's something that I could definitely get into a little bit more. And this may be one of those songs that would grow on me over time, so I will check this out again. It's not one of my favorites on the record, but I do think it's an epic way to end the album, which is what you always want to do with the last track on the album. So I will put Straight Jacket Fitting in the plus column for the new record from Queens of the Stone Age. So overall, for Queens of the Stone Age and Times New Roman, I think, like I said, it's a very strong artistic rock record. These guys are making rock music at the top of their games. The performances are incredible. There's so many interesting things coming at you, especially if you're listening in the headphones. There's so much ear candy happening on this record, from the guitars to the bass to the vocals. I wish the drums were a little bit louder in the mix, but I can understand if that was a specific decision that they made on this record. But I can, I'm just saying, this is a very strong record when it comes to the musicianship and the instrumentals and the sonics on this record. Super strong. Melody-wise, didn't really get there for me. Like I said, it might sink in a little bit further as I listen to the album more, but it didn't really strike me the way I wanted it to. I don't think there's a lot of songs on here that would necessarily live up to the classics of the Queens of the Stone Age canon. I don't think there's a No One Knows on here. I don't think there's a Go With the Flow, or even, you think back to some of those other records like Little Sister or Burn the Witch or Sick 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 or Make It With You. There's not a lot of that happening on this record, but I can understand that that's not necessarily what they're going for. It's been a rough few years for Josh Homme, and he's trying to put that into a great rock record with Queens of the Stone Age, which is something I can totally get behind. So it's a little bit of middle of the road for me. I didn't love it as much as I wanted to, but I do think it is a strong record. So I'm going to give Queens of the Stone Age and Times New Roman a 3 out of 5. All right, that's it, guys. That is my review of the new album from Queens of the Stone Age called In Times New Roman. Let me know what you thought of the record in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe to us here on the Rock Squad channel so you don't miss out on future videos. Thank you to everybody who has subscribed over the last little while. We went up quite a few subscribers off the reviews of Noel Gallagher's Council Skies and the Foo Fighters, but here we are. So thank you and welcome to everybody who is joining us here on the Rock Squad channel. We really are glad you're here, and let's have a conversation. So let me know what you thought about Queens of the Stone Age. Subscribe, like, share, do all that kind of stuff. Follow us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Rock Squad Pod. And if you like rock music, you like Foo Fighters, Weezer, Oasis, that kind of stuff, you can check out my band. We're from Hamilton here. We're a 4-piece rock and roll band, and we're called Fools Union. You can check us out on Spotify. You can check us out on YouTube, everywhere you get your music, and you can check us out at foolsunion.com. But until the next rock album review, we'll see you then. Rock on, everybody.